Share screen. Share. Okay, do you all see the screen? Elasticity of demand at the monopoly quantity. If you don't see, let me know. Okay, this is a brief review. I think this slide goes through the optimal production process, right? Remember, market demand curve is average revenue. Revenue is P times Q, and average revenue is revenue per unit of output, revenue per unit. So you divide this by Q, you're left with P only. And demand curve is, by the law of demand curve is downsloping. In other words, as output increases, revenue per unit, average revenue is going down. That means marginal revenue must be below average revenue, okay? So here's the demand curve. Marginal revenue curve lies below the demand curve, okay? So this is the marginal revenue curve. Now, how do you choose the optimal rate of output? Well, it's very simple. From the demand curve, you derive marginal revenue curve, okay? If the demand curve were linear, that's even simpler. This marginal revenue would be half of the demand curve. You're not bisecting the angle of this demand curve, but the horizontal distance. You divide this horizontal distance into two equal segments, and marginal revenue must go through those midpoints, okay? So marginal revenue curve lies below demand curve because average revenue or demand curve is downsloping, okay? So the intersection of marginal revenue and marginal cost curve occurs right here. So that is the optimal output, Q. And where is the monopoly price? Not here, but it's found on the demand curve. There would be a monopoly price, PM. Now, what about the elasticity of demand? Well, in this region, especially, it's much easier to understand this if you imagine a linear demand curve. At this point, revenue is zero. Price is great, but you're not selling anything, so revenue is zero. As you lower the price, you're selling more, and revenue increases from zero. Revenue increases, revenue keeps increasing until you reach the midpoint where revenue is maximized. That is where marginal revenue reaches zero, okay? Beyond that, you don't want to go there because as you increase production, revenue is actually going down. So why would anybody do that, okay? So when the monopolist is operating whether it's maximizing profit or minimizing its loss, revenue must be increasing at this point, meaning the price elasticity of demand must be greater than 1, okay? Okay, whether the monopolist is making a profit or not solely depends on the relationship between price and average cost. In this example, at the monopoly price here, at this price, average cost is lower than monopoly price. So it is earning that much profit per unit. Total profit is price minus average cost times the output. So that will be the area of this rectangle. Okay, the area of this rectangle shows the magnitude of monopoly profits. But just because you are the only firm, it does not guarantee that you will be earning a positive profit. Sometimes demand shrinks and even the monopolist may be losing money. Okay, so that example is illustrated in this diagram. The intersection of marginal revenue and marginal cost occurs right here. Monopoly price occurs where monopoly price is right there on the demand curve. That's monopoly price. But average cost is even higher. Okay, so in this case, even the monopolist would be losing money. The loss would be equal to the area of this horizontal block. Okay, so there is no guarantee that the monopolist will earn a positive profit. It all depends on the relationship between price and average cost. If price is greater than average cost, great, you are earning a positive profit. If price is less than average cost, then even the monopolist is losing money, okay? So here's a question. When a monopoly is making a profit, other firms will enter the market. True or false? Of course, that's necessarily false. There is no guarantee. But if it's profit, if the firm is earning a profit, other firms would like to enter the market, but there are entry barriers, okay? So one way to enter the market is producing generic product. Once a drug company invents a Tylenol or other medicine or pill, the firm would have 17 years, would have patent right for 17 years. But after that, anybody can produce the same product. They can produce chemically identical product, okay? That's called generic product. And they could enter the market, but you cannot copy the brand name. It would be sold under generic, under a different name, or simply sold as generic drug. But that's different from entering the same market. So that's one way to break the entry barrier, okay? So let's compare monopoly and perfect competition. We're going to do this by assuming that one of the competitive firms, let's assume there were 100 competitive firms. Like in railway industry, I think Vanderbilt became a monopolist. But how did he do that? Well, he kept buying factories of competitors. He kept buying all these factories until he absorbed all factories and became a monopolist. So suppose there are 100 companies, or even maybe it could be even more than that. And if they were perfectly competitive firms, well, their output would be equal to, their output would occur at the rate at the place where price equal marginal cost, okay? Price equal marginal cost for each one of these 100 firms. So let's say that this is the horizontal sum. This Greek letter sigma means sum, okay? Horizontal sum of individual firms' marginal cost curves. So this is the aggregate marginal cost curve of all the 100 firms. If this market were competitive, well, it was initially, right? Price equal demand, marginal cost right there. So that would be the competitive price and output. Oops. It's difficult to draw a straight vertical line. That was competitive firms' output, Q. And this would be the competitive firm's price. Now, suppose one of these firms kept buying all the remaining firms and consolidated all these factories under the control of a single manager or boss. Well, he's now acting as a monopolist. How would he choose the optimal output? Well, since he's a monopolist, he's going to equate marginal revenue to marginal cost right there, okay? So this would be monopoly output, and that would be monopoly price right there. So the monopolist, we could criticize monopolist. Why is monopoly bad? Well, many times consumers argue the monopolist is making too much money. Well, why don't we appoint a philanthropic boss, say Billy Graham? I'm sure he's a well-known Christian guy, and so he's not interested in squeezing blood from consumers. So he's going to donate all his profits to social organizations or to the poor people. So he has no interest in making money, accumulating profits, and so on. So, or we can call Socrates or some other philosophers from history and let him be in charge of this monopoly firm. Would that still be bad? And the answer is yes. In this example, you see that the monopolist, even though he has no interest, even though the firm is going to donate all the profits to the society, well, we don't have many billionaires doing that. They claim they are donating, but they try to manipulate the political agenda. They have their own agenda and they have ulterior motives many times. But suppose you have a pure and sincere person donating all the proceeds, all the profits to the society. Is he still bad? And the answer is yes. Why? In this example, you see, this is the price and output in a perfectly competitive market. But once this industry turns into monopoly, he starts behaving differently. Okay? He's restricting output, he's cutting his output, and raise price to monopoly price. Competitive price is right here, monopoly price is right over there. So it's not the, you cannot argue, well, the human beings are evil people. No, it is the form of the business. Like the businesses or the CEOs or bosses are like water. If you pour water on a vertically straight container, like gas container, it's going to be straight, vertically straight. But if you pour water in a crooked container, like some artistic vase, if you pour water here, the form of water is going to copy the shape of the container. If it's straight like this, it will be straight. If it's crooked, it will be crooked like the vessel or vase, okay? So it's not because the owner is evil, but the form, the very form of the market, monopoly market, no matter who you appoint as the boss, he's going to behave strangely, okay? So this explains why monopoly is bad. Monopoly is bad, not because he's making too much money, no. Even when they're earning zero profits or donating all their profits to the social cause or poor people, he is still crooked. So this gives the reason why the government or society rather wants to break up monopolies, okay? So this gives justification for antitrust law. Antitrust means firms with market power, okay? So during the early part of the 20th century, many American firms like Andrew Carnegie, of course, I'm sure he was a great man, good man, but once he became a monopolist of steel products, he was restricting, he bought other foundries and closed it. He stopped producing, restricting output and raising prices. That's how some of these monopolists made huge amount of money. But because of the antitrust law, many of these monopolies were broken up, including the Standard of Oil, owned by Rockefeller family, right? Okay, so I think I explained this. Comparing monopoly price. Monopoly price is higher than competitive price. And this monopolist is restricting output, reducing output from competitive level to the monopoly level. So consumers are hit twice. They get to consume less, and they are paying higher price, okay? They are hit from both sides. Like Poland during World War II, from the left, you have German people invading. From the right, the Russians were invading. So, okay, that was no fun for Poland. Question: at the monopoly profit maximizing point, price will be greater than marginal cost. Monopolist does not equate price to marginal cost. It equates marginal revenue, okay, to marginal cost. And price is always less than, greater than marginal revenue, because price is average revenue curve, okay? So that says all about the efficiency of monopoly equilibrium. Marginal utility, this is marginal benefit. Marginal benefit, marginal cost must be equal. Marginal cost in competitive economy equal price. But once you have a monopolist, marginal cost is not equal to price. Price is greater than marginal cost, okay? So that's the source of efficiency. Okay. Let's switch to another topic. Price discrimination. Why make fuss about price discrimination? Well, this is because, let me see. Okay, price discrimination. Why consider price discrimination? Well, there is no guarantee that price will be greater than average cost, even for the monopolist. Okay, so this is a way for some firms could survive as a monopolist, even if price is less than average cost. Can the monopolist do something about this? If price is less than average cost, even the monopolist goes out of business. Profit is negative, okay? In this situation, you can discriminate consumers. Price discrimination is one way for the monopolist to survive. So how can you do that? Well, we know from experience, when you travel to other countries, shopping malls, or outlet malls. Here's a picture. Well, I can't show you the picture. I will just explain it. In many countries, haggling occurs. What does haggling? In the United States, we have list pricing. List pricing is very convenient, especially makes sense for busy people. You don't have time to argue with the seller. Just pay the price. If you like it, you pay the price and get out. You don't want to waste a second in the shop. It's no fun. You are there just to buy necessary items. So list price is convenient for modern consumers. But in some developing countries, or when the prices are very high, consumers do not mind haggling over the price. But, well, how much is this refrigerator? Well, that's $1,200. Well, can you cut the price a little bit? Well, this being called the Columbus Day, well, whatever day, Halloween, whatever, for whatever reasons. Well, I could give you a discount of $50, etc. Well, that's not good enough. How about $200? No, this is haggling. So that's what happens in many developing countries, okay? Consumers and sellers often bargain over the price and the product. The consumers, there are some problems, right? In this case, when haggling is acceptable, you don't want to pay a penny more than the bottom price, but consumers generally do not know. Often the seller knows from experience what the bottom price consumers are willing to pay. So often they would discount a little bit and so on. So that's what happens. Haggling and bargaining often occurs for high-priced items and also in developing countries. But there is also the advantage of fixed pricing. You don't have to waste time with consumers arguing about it. So that's what happens in department stores. You simply put a price tag and that's it. No argument. Okay, if you want it, you pick it up, you dump it in your cart, and go to the cashier, pay the balance and get out quickly. Okay, there is no point in wasting time any more than is required. Okay, so the haggling and bargaining is a form of price discrimination. Sometimes the seller knows exactly how much to extract from consumers, okay? Generally, this form of haggling and bargaining is called price discrimination. So why do monopolists practice price discrimination? Well, without it, the firm may not survive. So this is one way. This is a survival strategy. I'm not implying that these monopolists are out there to get you and squeeze blood from consumers. Usually the number of consumers is very small, so you will have to be very good to make a deal. And the monopolists may not survive with uniform pricing. Uniform pricing means you don't care whether the buyer is son of a millionaire or a billionaire even. He has a lot of money in his pocket, etc. You don't have time to waste to find the willingness to pay. You just put a price tag. That's the price you're going to charge to every consumer. And that's so far, that's what we have been using. We have assumed producers are practicing uniform pricing, okay? Price is, all consumers pay the same price. That was the assumption. Now we are looking at the advantages of price discrimination. Okay, so here are some preconditions for price discrimination. The seller must be able to segregate different groups of consumers. Different groups meaning consumers are willing to pay, the amount consumers are willing to pay differs between groups, okay? And also reselling must be prohibited. And the third, the seller must be a price setter like monopolist, not a competitive firm. Competitive firms cannot survive with dual pricing. Everybody figures out what you're doing and they will pay the lowest price. So sometimes this is not about the mass merchandising. This is not a mass market. The number of consumers is rather small, and you can easily identify the consumer groups. Like the many restaurants and names, they can pretty much figure out whether you are students or not. And to students, they will probably charge lower prices. So, but for regular consumers, they will charge higher prices. Sometimes they do that. What is wrong with uniform pricing? Well, as I said earlier, uniform pricing may not yield positive profit, okay? So they are trying various ways to extract more profit, charging maybe a higher price to richer consumers, okay? A good example is like airline ticketing. If you're traveling on weekends, during Christmas time, this year, a lot of students are going home because the semester ends before Thanksgiving. And if you're traveling to foreign countries around that time or to your hometowns, well, they know you are students and they will try to lower prices, okay? But if you are traveling during business days, like on Monday or Tuesday, and come back the next day, they know you are business consumers. You are flying because of funerals or some reasons, in which case they will charge high prices. You will pay through your nose, okay? And also senior citizen discounts. Sometimes they give 10% discounts, whatever, to old people or students. So these are one ways. There must be an easy way to separate these groups of consumers, okay? This is the Italian company headquarters, GSK. They are selling anti-HIV, human immunodeficiency virus drugs, I think. They are selling these drugs, and the HIV treatment costs about $18,300 per year. If you want to include hepatitis C, that's going to cost about $30,000. HIV treatment costs less than $300 in low-income countries like those in Africa. But if you're an American, you're blessed. You will be you will be paying $39,000 per year. So a lot of people are bitching about, carping about high drug prices. But what will the drug companies do? Suppose you are the owner of this drug company. You are given 17 years of patent right, but you have wasted 10 years for clinical studies. So effective length of patent is only 10 years. You have a short 10 years through in which you can make money. So they are forced to charge high prices. $100 per vial and so on. And then after 17 years, everybody can make generic drugs. And these firms, these potential firms, haven't spent a penny to develop drugs. And then they copy the drug formula, okay? Since you have patent, you have to specify exactly the chemical components of your drugs. So after 10 years, it gives free right to copy and produce generic drugs. So you've got just 10-year time window in which you can make money, and the drug price is gonna be, I got shingles booster shot, that's like a couple of $100 per shot, and you have to get 2 of them to be effective, and so on. They are gonna charge through your nose. Now, we have a lot of poor countries, developing countries like in Africa, those in Africa and India. How much do they pay? Less than $300. If you're in Africa or in India, or $39,000, you're blessed to receive these treatments. $39,000 a year. Who's gonna be able to pay that much? Okay, so why don't these drug companies sell these products to India and African countries? Well, their income is very low, so you cannot charge African consumers. Do you have $39,000? Raise your hand if you have if you can afford $39,000 a year. You will find no consumers there. There is no demand for drug at that price in Africa or India. So, and even if, well, there are a couple of countries like South Africa, that's the producer of the diamonds, like De Beers diamonds. So some African countries are rich. So if you were to sell these drugs to African countries or India, do they have money? $39,000? No. You have to cut the price. You have to charge like 1% of the price you charge to American consumers. So instead of $39,000, say $400. Even at that price, they're gonna complain, oh, it's too much, blah, blah, we don't have money. So suppose you sell this product at that price. Yeah, you can still make money, even at $400. But there is a problem. If you sell the drug at $400 and you're charging $39,000 in the US, now all these illegal drug dealers, mafia, and so on in New York City, they hear about this. Oh, this price, we can get them for $400, and we'll cut the price to these American consumers, maybe $20,000. We can take a huge profit here. Buy the drugs at $400 in Africa or India, bring them back to the United States for let's say $30,000. American consumers will be happy to buy all your illicit drugs. So this is going to be a problem, okay? Only the illegal organizations like mafia will be making money, not the drug companies. So that's the reason why we have this resale must be prohibited. I don't mean legal prohibition. That's not, just because you pass a law, hey, highway speed 70 miles per hour, that's it. Will that be enough? No, you have to let police officers patrol highways. Without them, nobody's gonna keep the highway speed limits. Who's gonna watch you? So just passing a law is not good enough. Just outlawing resale of these drugs between the two countries is not good enough. You have to enforce it by hiring people, patrol boats, and so on and so on, checking merchandise, checking the cargoes of container ships, etc. So drug companies say, no, this is not going to work. Okay, so they are going to say, forget it. We're going to stick with American consumers and we'll be making enough money. That's their attitude. Not because they discriminate human beings, poor human beings in Africa and India. It just does not pay to sell their drugs to poor people in Africa and Asia, okay? So what will what can the poor people do in Africa and India? Well, they complain to WTO, World Trade Organization. What about us poor consumers? We don't have, we ain't got this much money, $39,000. We cannot afford it. So WTO, oops. Where's, here. Okay, right here. WTO, let me write it here. World Trade Organization passed a resolution. If these drug manufacturers in the US and Europe are not going to sell drugs, brand name drugs to these poor countries, in that case, developing countries can produce generic drugs and sell them to other poor countries, okay? So many generic drugs are now being produced by India, and they're selling all these drugs, expensive drugs. I mean, the drugs that are expensive in the United States at very reasonable price. So poor people of Africa and India are also served. In America, we are rich and we are also served, although we have to pay much more. If you don't like America, well, then go live in Africa or India. That benefit, even though we may be paying high prices for drugs, we cannot simply criticize them as heartless, rich farms, evil farms. No, they're not evil. They're just trying to survive and make money. They've made huge investment. They're trying to serve American consumers and survive. Okay. Okay, we'll stop here. Any questions? Any questions?
Thanks,
Okay,
Joy.
yeah, we'll stop here. You have an exam on November 6th.